Part 19. I am immortal and I raise a divine beast in another world. Author, Chen Wunian. Chapter 181. Half-Emperor period. The Fire Phoenix in the center of the earth. This is the new name of Fire Phoenix. The Fire Phoenix, which reached the Half-Emperor stage, transformed into a giant bird with wings several hundred meters long. Its body at this moment is as huge as a mountain. With its wings spread, it covered the sky and the sun, and the scorching flames illuminated the entire sky. Chen Hao sat on Huo Feng's head. The Fire Phoenix is too huge, and the space above its head is extremely spacious. The Fire Phoenix flew high in the sky and flew towards the place where Satya and Ross were fighting. Can you know their location? Chen Hao asked. When the Fire Phoenix heard this, it said, I can feel the magic element fluctuations around me. In front, I can feel the very terrifying and strong dark magic element fluctuations and wind magic element fluctuations. With such strong magic element fluctuations, I have never experienced them in my life. I've never seen it before. The power of the Lord God is really terrifying. When Huo Feng was talking, Chen Hao also saw something unusual. The Fire Phoenix was radiating flames, and the flames it emitted made the sky and the ocean below turn red. However, the sky and ocean in front were pitch black, and black mist enveloped everything in front. It's daytime here, and it's like night ahead. The sky was black, and the black mist was billowing. The dark clouds in the sky, the black fog ahead and the sea below are all spinning. Black tornadoes connect the ocean and the sky. Looks very amazing. Boom boom boom. Within the black mist, there were loud noises, the sea surface was turbulent, and the giant wolf roared. Stop, Chen Hao said. The Fire Phoenix flapped its wings and stopped. Chen Hao looked ahead. Satya and Ross should be fighting. The battle between gods is so fierce that the color of the world changes. However, in this case, I won't be able to see their fighting situation, Chen Hao muttered. Chen Hao thought for a moment, called out the book, and then took out the biological identification device from the book. I don't know if I can use this thing without seeing it. Thinking about it, Chen Hao picked up the biometric identification device and opened it, with the screen facing forward. Identifying. Authentication completed. There are dark magic elements and wind magic elements colliding ahead. Looking at the text displayed on the screen, Chen Hao couldn't help rolling his eyes. I know there is a battle ahead. What I want to know is the status of the two of them. You can use a biosensor with a bioidentifier to identify targets remotely. Chen Hao's heart moved. How to use it? You can card the biosensor and the bioidentifier together, and then whenever you think about merging, the two will merge into the biosensor authenticator. Is this still possible? Can cards still be fused? Chen Hao took out the biosensor from the book. Change. The biosensor and bioidentifier were put together by Chen Hao. Change. The two together become one card. Chen Hao picked up the card and the name of the card was displayed. Life sensors and biometric identifiers. Chen Hao thought in his mind, integration. Suddenly, the display on the card became blurry. Then it becomes clear again. The cards changed their appearance and their names. Life sensor identification device. The image inside the card changes from two spheres to one sphere. Changed. It really can be integrated. Boom. Suddenly, there was another loud noise. Chen Hao came to his senses and looked forward. Try it. Change. The card turned into a sphere and appeared in Chen Hao's hand. Chen Hao pressed the button on the sphere. The sphere projects a map, and one red and one green dot is seen in the map. Those 2 points moved wildly on the map, separated, and collided. Following a collision, there was a loud noise ahead. Boom. It seems that the battle is not over yet. The green one should be Satya, and the red one should be Ross. How can I check the information of these two people? Chen Hao muttered. Chen Hao thought for a moment, then tried to reach out his hand and click on the red dot. A little. Suddenly, the red dot was surrounded by another circle, and then a picture popped up on the map with text on it. Under Identification. Authentication completed. Main God period Storm God. The Lord God of Storms, a wind-attributed monster, was born from a large amount of wind magic element, and possesses the unique abilities of the Lord God. Due to the war between the gods caused by the crusade against the Dark Goddess 30,000 years ago, the godhead of the Storm God was damaged. Although the Storm God is still in the realm of the Lord God, his strength at this moment is only comparable to that of the God General. Chen Hao's heart moved. Chen Hao asked, "If I capture it with a trapping rope, what is the success rate?" The Storm Lord God in the Lord God stage only has the strength of the God General stage, which means that the Storm Lord God is still injured and has not yet recovered. As long as it is injured, the animal trapping rope has a success rate of capturing it. Chen Hao wants to know, what is the current success rate? This biometric identifier seems to have built-in AI that can answer your questions. This is probably the God who is not afraid of giving too much, but is afraid of giving too little, and he stayed here specifically to help himself. However, Chen Hao didn't know whether it could give himself a success rate in capturing it. Use the animal trapping rope to capture the Storm God, with a success rate of 11%. This text popped up on the screen. Seeing this, Chen Hao's eyes lit up slightly, and a smile appeared on his face. Sure enough. It seems that the gods are afraid that I don't know how to use these things, so they specially made an AI-like thing for this biological identification device to help me. Unfortunately, I didn't know the use of this thing before, so I figured it out by myself. Now it seems that this biological identification device is not ordinary. Chen Hao said, "If I want to use the trap rope, can I use it remotely? Do I need to see the Lord of Storms?" The trap rope card can be combined with the biological sensor. As long as you select the target in the biological sensor, you can use the trap rope to capture it remotely. Seeing the text on the screen, Chen Hao's face suddenly had a smile. In this case, then. Chen Hao took out the trap rope card from the book. He looked at the Storm Lord Ross, who was fighting back and forth with Shisha on the projected map. He smiled and said, "Sorry, I'm going to plot against you." The voice fell. Chen Hao said, "Transform." The trap rope card materialized into a trap rope and rushed into the black fog. Seeing this, Chen Hao raised his eyebrows. The success rate is 11%, I don't know if it can be done in one go. After a while, a card appeared out of thin air in front of Chen Hao. It was the trap rope card. Seeing this, Chen Hao raised his eyebrows. Failed. The capture rate of the Storm Lord has increased, and it is currently 19%. Chen Hao was about to continue using the trap rope, but he inadvertently saw a string of text on the screen. Seeing this string of text, Chen Hao's eyes had a hint of doubt. Suddenly, Chen Hao's mind flashed. The weaker the target, the higher the capture rate. The trap rope does not have the ability to attack, and it is impossible for the Storm Lord to be injured, which means, when the trap rope just passed by, although it did not capture Ross, the trap rope also restricted Ross's actions at that moment. You know, Ross and Shataya are fighting fiercely now. Suddenly, a trap rope appears and binds Ross. Shataya will definitely not miss this opportunity. Chen Hao can completely imagine that Shataya and Ross are fighting, and Ross is suddenly tied up by the trap rope, and then beaten up by Shataya. Then he is injured, and the success rate of capture increases. Chen Hao raised the corner of his mouth, revealing a malicious smile. "Storm God, right? It looks like you are going to be unlucky. I am immortal and I raise a divine beast in another world." Author, Chen Wunian. Chapter 182. Transform. The animal catching rope turned into an animal catching rope and flew into the black mist. Suddenly, the animal trapping rope turned into a card again and appeared in front of Chen Hao. The capture success rate displayed on the screen of the evaluator changed to 27%. Change. The capture success rate becomes 30%. The animal trapping rope turned into a card and returned to Chen Hao. The success rate becomes 34%. Change. The capture success rate increased again to 39%. After Chen Hao's secret plot continued for a period of time. What appeared in front of Chen Hao's eyes again turned into two cards. The first picture is exactly the animal trapping rope, and the second picture is. Chen Hao put away the animal trapping rope card, then picked up the second card and looked at it. Main God period God of Storms. Taming, 0. Master, suddenly, a voice came. Chen Hao came back to his senses and found that there was a figure in front of him. It was Satya. Satya flew in the mid-air on the black mist. Its face was full of joy. Master, you put that rope down, right? Chen Hao blinked, huh? Satya laughed and said, when I was fighting with Ross, a rope came out and tied it up, and then I took the opportunity to beat it. It was tied up with the rope 4 times, and I seriously injured it. Master, you don't know, when Ross was tied up with the rope, he shouted, "What is this?" His surprised expression was so funny, ha. Satya couldn't help laughing. I have the help of my master, but that stinky idiot Ross still wants to beat me. He really thinks too much. Seeing Satya's happy look, Chen Hao was happy. Although Chen Hao had thought about this, Chen Hao felt very happy when he heard Satya talk about the situation on the battlefield. Chen Hao said with a smile, the matter is settled, let's go back first. Huo Feng, let's go. The fire phoenix flapped its wings and flew back. Chen Hao sat on Huo Feng's head and looked at his newly obtained Storm God card. Main God period God of Storms. Taming, 0. This level of tameness made Chen Hao feel a bit dizzy. Chen Hao was a little excited to be able to capture the God of Storms, but now he looked at it and found that it was useless. The reason for capturing Satya before was because Satya was in the cub stage, so Shuai took the initiative to increase its tameness. But the God of Storms is in the main God stage, and its tameness will not change based on time. The Storm God is too powerful, and the Minotaur magic of the Flower Fairy is of no use to it. To tame an adult monster, you need to be hungry. In other words, this thing cannot be tamed by itself. This is a head-scratching question. Suddenly, Chen Hao thought of something. Chen Hao looked at Satya, who was sitting next to him. Satya's body was surrounded by a magic shield composed of dark magic elements. It sat next to him, looking at him with its big eyes, with admiration in its eyes. Seeing Chen Hao's eyes, Satya smiled and said, Master. Chen Hao said, I remember Hefei said before that you invented the mind control magic. Satya hummed and said proudly, yes, I was the first to be born among the 7 major gods, and I was the first to develop mind control magic. Hearing this, Chen Hao's eyes lit up. Flower Fairy's Minotaur magic obviously has no effect on Rose, but what about Satya? Chen Hao said with a smile, can you control Rose with mental magic? When Satya heard it, it said, the idea of using mental magic to control gods, is a bit crazy. It looked at Chen Hao, however, it is not impossible now. Rose is not strong now. If I can mentally control it when it returns to its peak, I should be able to do it. In other words, the current Satya can't do it yet. God is indeed God. It is not that simple to control God. But since Satya said so, it means it can be done. However, it takes time. When he was about to fly back to Wolong Island, Chen Hao noticed a strange creature flying towards him in front of him. It was an elf. Behind this elf was a pair of transparent dragonfly-like wings. He was wearing green clothes and had long green hair. It is flapping its wings and flying here. That's... There was a hint of doubt in Chen Hao's eyes. Master, That is the wood elf born from the life emperor wood, a voice came. Chen Hao was startled. He turned his face and saw that the deer girl with a faint fluorescent light and antlers had also come to him at some point. The Emperor Tree of Life is the evolution of the ancient Tree of Life. Chen Hao remembered that when the Life Emperor Wood was still the ancient life tree, it was already giving birth to wood elves. Have wood elves been conceived? The wood elf flew to Chen Hao and stopped. It looked at Chen Hao, flapped its wings slowly, and stopped in front of Chen Hao. It raised its hand and put it on its chest to salute Chen Hao, and then looked at Chen Hao respectfully. Said, "Master, a visitor is here. This wood elf is a boy. Judging from his height and appearance, he looks like a 5 or 6-year-old human child." Chen Hao said, "Visitor." The wood elf nodded slightly and lowered its head slightly. "Yes, that man claims to be the god of Dharma." "Oh." Chen Hao smiled, "Old friend, let's go back." The fire phoenix flapped its wings and continued to fly towards Wolong Island. After reaching the sky above the giant tree forest, Chen Hao looked down from the top of the fire phoenix's head. The scene in front of him surprised Chen Hao a little. A huge tree that was taller than all the giant trees in the giant tree forest stood in the giant tree forest. This huge tree was glowing with green light. On the tree, you could see fluorescent human-shaped fruits. These fruits were like little people lying on the crown of the tree. The leaves on the crown were like natural beds, supporting these little people. Around this big tree, one after another wood elves with transparent wings were sitting on the trunks of other trees, or flying in the air. Some were standing on the ground, looking up at the side with their little heads raised. These wood elves were small in size, both male and female. When Chen Hao saw this, he couldn't help but blink. Today, after Chen Hao released the Emperor of Life Wood, it maintained its human form. Chen Hao had too many beasts, so he didn't pay much attention to it. All I know is that after it came out, it saluted Chen Hao and walked out. Unexpectedly, this thing directly found a place to take root and then began to breed wood elves. How long has it been, and a bunch of wood elves have been born? Chen Hao patted the fire phoenix on the head and said, "Let's go down and see what the Emperor of Life is doing." "Just land, don't get too close, I see there are a lot of wood elves nearby, don't crush them." When the fire phoenix heard it, it flapped its wings and flew down. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. I am immortal and I raise a divine beast in another world. Author, Chen Wunian. Chapter 183. The fire phoenix found a place to land, and its body glowed red and slowly turned into a human form. Chen Hao's body was wrapped in a flame magic shield, and he was lifted up and flew down, landing on the ground. "Master, the fire phoenix is too big to be a mount on the ground." "Master, ride me." Suddenly, a pleasant voice came. Chen Hao looked at the deer girl who was speaking. The deer girl was a fluorescent deer girl in the awakening period before, and after eating the Emperor Core, with the help of the Emperor Core. The deer girl has broken through to the holy beast stage and became a dreamy holy deer. It is still in the state of a deer girl, but the figure is more mature, the hair is blue and white, the body is glowing with a faint halo, and the corners of the mouth are smiling. The deer girl seems to be the same as the flower demon, both like to pursue beauty, but the flower demon pursues enchantment and charm, while the deer girl is holy and dreamy. After the deer girl finished speaking, her body glowed, and her body shape changed from human to deer. She looked at Chen Hao with her deer head and said with a smile, "Master, come on." The voice was like a silver bell. Seeing this, Chen Hao looked at the Life Emperor Wood, which was still a short distance away. Because the fire phoenix was too big, it could only fly a little away and fall. So there was still some distance now. Chen Hao didn't say anything, walked to the side of the deer girl, stepped on the petals prepared by the deer girl for her, and sat on the saddle on the back of the deer girl. The deer girl, who turned into a green deer, stepped flexibly and ran towards the direction of the Life Emperor wood. The Fire Phoenix and Chataya spread their wings behind them and followed. Chen Hao rode on the back of the green deer, and he looked at the green deer below. Very interesting. Chen Hao thought that he would feel bumpy when sitting on the back of the green deer, but to Chen Hao's surprise, there was no bump, but it was very stable. Moreover, the back of the green deer is very soft. Although sitting on the saddle, Chen Hao can clearly feel the softness and smoothness of the muscles on the back of the green deer. Deer are different from wolves or birds. Like the three wolves, they have a lot of hair, and the Fire Phoenix has more feathers. But the hair of the deer is very fine, so it is relatively smooth. Where the green deer's hooves stepped on, the place where the hooves landed glowed with fluorescence, and where the fluorescence glowed, green grass would grow. Chen Hao could smell a faint fragrance of grass. While Chen Hao was feeling the riding feeling brought by this strange beast mount, he had unknowingly come to the Emperor of Life Wood. Master, suddenly, voices rang out all around. It was the voice of the Emperor of Life Wood and the voice of the group of wood elves. The voices were in unison. Chen Hao came back to his senses, and the green deer stopped. Chen Hao raised his face and took a look. Seeing the Life Emperor tree in front of him, which was glowing with light, many wood elves were sitting on the trunk of the giant tree next to it, looking at Chen Hao with their big eyes. Chen Hao looked at the Life Emperor tree, whose face grew on the trunk. Because it was too tall, Chen Hao had to tilt his head up to barely see it. Chen Hao smiled and said, "When you reach the half-emperor stage, your speed of breeding wood elves has changed a lot." "Yes, Master, I want to breed more wood elves. When breeding, I can't turn into a human form, and I can't salute the Master." The voice of the Life Emperor tree was a little overwhelmed. Chen Hao smiled, "Don't be nervous, saluting is not that important. Respect is in my heart. I don't value showing skills. You are breeding wood elves, and you still remember to let the wood elves inform me that there are visitors. It can be seen that you have the Master in your heart. This is enough. Thank you for your understanding, Master." The voice of the Emperor came. Listening to this obvious male voice, he looked at the wood elves around him. Chen Hao stretched his eyebrows. "So, is this Emperor of Life Wood a man or a woman? Forget it, there is no point in asking this question. It seems that this thing cannot be judged by human common sense." Chen Hao smiled and said, "Then you have fun here, I will go back first." At this point, Chen Hao paused, then looked at Huo Feng. "Huo Feng, when you are free, you can bring Shui Yi and the others to play here and protect the wood elves to avoid problems." Huo Feng heard it and smiled and said, "Yes. Thank you, Master." The Emperor of Life Wood expressed gratitude again. Chen Hao heard it and smiled and said, "What is there to thank the Master for? The Emperor of Life Wood itself is Chen Hao's thing, and the wood elves it breeds are naturally Chen Hao's things. It is reasonable to protect your own things." Chen Hao looked at King Lu. "Let's go home." King Lu hummed, and its dear face was flushed, with a smile on its face, full of excitement and excitement. Chen Hao noticed King Lu's deer's expression, and the corners of his mouth twitched. How come this thing is the same as the Fire Phoenix? The green deer ran towards the direction of the wooden house. Soon, Chen Hao saw the wooden house, and also saw the God of Law sitting in front of the door of the wooden house. The God of Law was sitting on a chair, and next to the God of Law was a female wood elf who looked like a 5 or 6-year-old human child. The female wood elf stood aside and looked at the God of Law. The monsters that were just next to the wooden house were all turned into cards by Chen Hao and put away. There was no one else in the wooden house. It was probably that the Emperor of Life saw this, so he specially asked the wood elf to come and communicate with the God of Law. When the female wood elf saw Chen Hao, its eyes lit up slightly and a smile appeared on its face. "Master." The female wood elf trotted over here. Chen Hao got off the back of the green deer and looked at the little girl with pointed ears and green hair. He smiled and said, "Good girl." He reached out and touched the little girl's head. The little girl's face was full of joy. These wood elves were bred by the Life Emperor Wood. The tameness of the Life Emperor Wood is 100, so are the loyalty of these wood elves to Chen Hao also 100? Judging from the little girl's posture, I guess that's what happened. Chen Hao retracted his hand and looked at the god of Dharma. He found that the god of Dharma had already walked over. He stroked his beard and looked at Chen Hao. "It's really unbelievable." Chen Hao smiled and said, "Old sir, do you want to share anything interesting with me this time?" The Dharma god was startled, then he smiled, "There is nothing interesting, but there is one important thing." "Huh?" Chen Hao stretched his eyebrows and said with a smile, "That's interesting. Come on, let's sit down and chat." Chen Hao and Fa Shen sat down on the chairs in front of the wooden house. The Dharma god looked around. He looked at the wood elf, fire phoenix, and Satya beside Chen Hao. His eyes paused on Satya. He slowly withdrew his gaze, looked at Chen Hao, and said with a smile, "You Lord Kami, even the old man can't see the strength of the beasts he has recently trained. It's really unbelievable." Chen Hao smiled and said, "Stop being a god, just tell me quickly. I'm currently busy with nothing to do. Let me see if there's anything important that even the god of Dharma would consider important." It's normal for the Dharma god to not be able to see clearly. The Dharma god's strength is at most comparable to ordinary holy beast level beasts, such as Fire Phoenix and Satya, which are existences that transcend holy beasts. Although Kinglu is a holy beast, its body is an alien beast. Although it is a holy beast, it is countless times stronger than ordinary holy beasts. It's normal for Dharma gods not to be able to see through it, but it's weird to be able to see through it. I am immortal and I raise a divine beast in another world. Author, Chen Wunian. Chapter 184. When the god of law heard this, his expression became serious. He looked at Chen Hao and said, "Lord Yushan, I have been staying in Wolong Island and don't know the current situation on the mainland. The situation on the mainland is changing, and the more important thing is the Demon Clan." Demon Clan? Chen Hao was slightly startled. He subconsciously turned his head to look at Shataya. Shataya looked at the side with her arms around her chest, and curiosity was revealed in her eyes. The god of law nodded slightly, "Yes." The god of law stroked his beard and said lightly, "According to ancient records, more than 30,000 years ago, the War of the Gods, the demon god fell, and the demons were driven out of the WAF continent. Recently, the figure of the demon god has appeared again in the demons. More than 30,000 years have passed since the demon god was resurrected. Now those warlike guys in the demons are preparing for war and plan to continue to follow the demons and invade the WAF continent. The god of law and the god of sword are just the names given to me and the old man sword god by humans, but both the sword god and I know very well that we are not real gods at all. If the demon god is really resurrected and leads the demons to invade the WAF continent, it would be terrible." Hearing this, Chen Hao involuntarily raised his right hand, touched his chin, and then raised his eyebrows. Chen Hao remembered the incident a while ago when Shataya ran to the demon city to get the artifact after she was resurrected. At that time, those demons recognized Shataya. It is estimated that the news of the resurrection of the demon god was spread because Shataya went to get the artifact and was seen by the demon. When it was spread to the WAF continent and heard by the god of law realized that he was not strong enough, so he thought of Chen Hao. That's why the old man came to him to talk about this. Ask for help? But the question is it necessary to ask for help in this matter? Chen Hao couldn't help but look at Shataya subconsciously. Shataya noticed Chen Hao's look, it pursed its lips, looked at the god of law, and opened its mouth to say something. Chen Hao spoke first, "Old man, why do you think that the demon god will attack the WAF continent after resurrection, Chen Hao interrupted what Shataya wanted to say, which was equivalent to hinting Shataya not to speak first. After hearing this, Shataya closed its mouth tacitly. When the god of law heard this, he said, according to ancient records, the demon god longs for killing and destruction. It is the purest incarnation of the devil. Other lives have a purpose for killing and destroying. But the demon god has no other purpose for killing and destroying. It just likes killing and destroying. The demon god is a pure devil. Nonsense. Shataya couldn't help it, and said, Old man, what are you talking about? Who are you talking about as a devil? The god of law was startled. He looked at Shataya, he frowned slightly, with doubt in his eyes, and then looked at Chen Hao. The god of law didn't understand what Shataya said. Chen Hao said, Shataya, don't be angry. When Shataya heard this, it pursed its lips and looked at the god of law. Huh. The god of law had doubts in his eyes. He was a little puzzled. He looked at Chen Hao and said, that is the lord of the holy beast, right? Why is it angry? Hearing this, Chen Hao smiled and said, you call it a demon, so it is naturally angry. The god of law was stunned. Ah! Chen Hao's words also made the god of law a little incomprehensible. Suddenly, the god of law seemed to realize something. His pupils suddenly condensed, and then he looked at Shataya in disbelief. He looked at Chen Hao again. You mean? Chen Hao nodded slightly, just as you think. The god of law stood up suddenly. He looked at Chen Hao in disbelief, and then looked at Shataya. Demon god, you are a demon god. The god of law was a little panicked. Shataya snorted, crossed her arms, and said disdainfully, I am the goddess of darkness. What demon, what devil, those are the names you humans gave me. The god of law was stunned. He looked at Chen Hao in disbelief. God of control, what's going on? Hearing this, Chen Hao smiled, don't be so scared, sit down first and talk slowly. The god of law was stunned. He looked at Shataya and then at Chen Hao. This. It seems that the CPU of the god of law is about to burn out. Chen Hao smiled and comforted, Shataya did something too much before. Now Shataya is my beast. Don't worry, it is resurrected, but it will not invade the WAF continent. When the god of law heard what Chen Hao said, he looked at Shataya and then at Chen Hao. Chen Hao looked at the god of law and found that his face was pale and nervous. After realizing that Shataya was the demon he was talking about, the god of law seemed to be very nervous. It seems that the fear and vigilance of the humans on the WAF continent against the demon have penetrated into their bones. Chen Hao looked at Shataya and said with a smile, Shataya, you scared the guests, you should go to the book and rest first. Shataya was startled, and it hummed, Master, Shataya is not a demon. Chen Hao nodded slightly, I know. Regarding the things Shataya did before, if it is put in Shataya's perspective, it is just a child playing with toys. But for the various races that Shataya treats as toys, it is a demon. Of course, for Chen Hao, it doesn't matter. Now Shataya is just his cute little pet. Change. Shataya turned into a card and floated in front of Chen Hao. Chen Hao took the card and put it into the book. The book disappeared. Chen Hao looked at the god of law. The pale face of the god of law slowly turned better. Chen Hao smiled, sit down first. The god of law raised his hand and placed it on his beard. He held his beard and slowly adjusted his mood. He sat on the chair and looked at Chen Hao, god of control, what's going on? Chen Hao crossed his arms and smiled, nothing happened. Just as you said, controlling gods, gods can also be controlled. Shataya is indeed resurrected, but now it is no longer the demon god you call it. Now it is my pet. The god of law was stunned. God, can also be controlled? God of control, you treat gods as beasts? Isn't this too exaggerated? The god of law was a little unbelievable. Chen Hao shrugged, believe it or not. Speaking of this, Chen Hao looked at the god of law. By the way, the sword god knows that Chataya is my pet. When I put Chataya away before, the sword god was next to me. The god of law was stunned. Does the old guy know? Chen Hao nodded slightly. Well, you can go ask it. The god of law blinked and smiled bitterly. I didn't expect it, I really didn't expect it. Yu Shen, God can also be a beast, it's too exaggerated, too exaggerated. The god of law repeated the exaggeration twice. Obviously, this reality has surpassed the cognition of the god of law, and his CPU probably can't process this information. Chen Hao smiled and said, this is not important. The important thing is that you are not worried that it will bring the demons to invade the WAF continent. I can guarantee that it will not do this. The god of law blinked and looked at Chen Hao. His old face showed a bitter smile. Yu Shen, worthy of being Yu Shen. The god of law raised his skinny hand, closed his eyes, rubbed his eyes with his fingers through his eyelids, and then rubbed his brain. The old man seemed to find it hard to accept. I am immortal and I raise a divine beast in another world. Author, Chen Wunian. Chapter 185. The god of law raised his head and looked at Chen Hao. He smiled bitterly and said, I never thought that the problem of my headache that made me unable to sleep would be solved just like that. The god of law is worthy of being the god of law, the god of law said. He adjusted his mood, looked at Chen Hao, and said with a smile, then, the matter is solved, I think I should leave too. Hearing this, Chen Hao was stunned. I'm leaving now. The god of law smiled bitterly. I've been here for a long time, and I guess I'm going to doubt myself. Then the god of law stood up and looked at Chen Hao. Then I'll take my leave first. Chen Hao nodded slightly, stood up, and watched the god of law leave. The god of law walked away and rode on the fire crow. The fire crow flapped its wings and flew away with the god of law. Chen Hao raised his head and watched the fire crow flying into the sky and gradually flying away. Chen Hao crossed his arms, self-doubt. If you stay by my side, even the god of law will doubt himself. Chen Hao raised his hand and touched his nose, then looked at the people around him. Looking at the human-shaped fire phoenix, the human-shaped green deer and the wood elf. Whoosh! Suddenly, there was a breeze. The strong wind made Chen Hao's clothes rustle, and Chen Hao raised his face and looked up. An extremely huge oriental dragon flew across the sky above. It was the ocean holy dragon in the holy beast period. Well, yes, with these beasts around, it's no wonder that the god of law said that. The current strength of these beasts around him has surpassed the cognition of this world. Master, he's back again, a voice came. It was the voice of the fire phoenix. Chen Hao looked at the fire phoenix, then raised his face and looked at the sky. He found that the god of law riding a fire crow was flying towards the side. Seeing this, Chen Hao raised his eyebrows. Back again. The fire crow flapped its wings and landed in front of Chen Hao. The god of law got off the fire crow's back and walked towards Chen Hao with a serious look. I was just scared and didn't come back to my senses. I forgot to remind you something. About the demon god. The old man thinks I have to remind you. The god of law stroked his beard and looked at Chen Hao. For more than 30,000 years, it has made enemies with many gods because of the invasion and massacre of other races by the demons it created. Those hatreds are endless hatreds. The demon god fell, and those gods who had previously conquered the demon god were said to have suffered serious injuries, but now that the demon god has resurrected, the injuries of other gods should be almost healed. You are now the master of the demon god. If those gods knew, they would definitely come to seek revenge on the demon god. Especially the wing god. Wing god, Chen Hao was slightly startled. Fire Phoenix said, Master, the winged god in the mouth of humans is the god of storms. The god of storms created the winged people, so humans call the god of storms the winged god. Oh. Chen Hao thought of the storm god card lying in his book, and he looked strange. But people kindly reminded him, and he couldn't embarrass him too much. So Chen Hao smiled friendly, okay. The god of law looked at Chen Hao's relaxed smile, and the old man of the god of law had a trace of doubt on his face. Yu Shen, don't you seem to be worried? Well, it's okay. Chen Hao touched the back of his head, didn't you say that? Those gods are also seriously injured. If they come, I don't have to be too afraid. The god of law nodded slightly, Yu Shen, you'd better be careful. The demon god's godhead is broken, while the other gods are only seriously injured. In the same time, other gods will definitely recover better than the demon god, especially the winged god. That guy has a deep hatred with the demon god. The demon god's demon slaughtered the two races of the winged god. If the winged god knew, it would probably be very troublesome. Hearing this, Chen Hao smiled. Winged god has been turned into a card collection card book by my master, and you are still talking about winged god here. Suddenly, a disdainful voice sounded. Hearing this voice, the god of law was stunned, and he looked at the fire phoenix who was talking beside him. The fire phoenix stretched his eyebrows, his eyes were arrogant. The god of law stared at Chen Hao blankly. Winged god was also. Chen Hao smiled, I didn't intend to say it just now, I was afraid that you would be too embarrassed. The god of storms has been here before. The god of law stopped holding his beard, and his mouth twitched. It seems that I am overthinking. He looked at Chen Hao, then, the old man will leave first. Chen Hao smiled and nodded. The god of law turned and left. Chen Hao watched the god of law sit on the back of the fire crow, and the fire crow flapped its wings and flew up, flying towards the sky. The impression this old man gave him was still good. Knowing that he had become the master of the demon god, he would be targeted by other gods, so he turned back to warn himself. He's a good person. Chen Hao gave his evaluation. My evaluation is not as good as a hair of the master. The voice of Fire Phoenix came. Chen Hao was startled. He looked at Fire Phoenix, but saw Fire Phoenix looking at the direction where the god of law left with disdain. Chen Hao smiled. In the eyes of these little guys, no one can compare to himself. Chen Hao released all the beasts that he had taken back from the book before. Chen Hao asked Chaitya to take Fire Phoenix and other beasts of the half-emperor period to the god's domain. Chen Hao asked Chaitya to hunt the emperor-level heavenly soldiers to obtain the emperor's core, and asked Fire Phoenix, Fire Fox, Big Bear, Big Wolf, Second Wolf, Third Wolf, Ice Rock, Doe, and others to hunt the half-emperor-level heavenly soldiers together to obtain the emperor's core. Fire Phoenix was very excited, haha, I can finally go to the god's domain to play. Big Wolf and others were also very excited. Especially the Big Wolf, who said excitedly, it's too boring to stay in Wolong Island during this period. The sacred beasts in Wolong Island are too weak. I can't use my full strength. Finally, I can go to the places in the god's domain, hee hee. Big Bear, Fire Fox, and Benjian didn't say anything. Only Fire Fox had a hint of excitement in his eyes. It's obvious that they have nothing to do during this period, and they are all bored. However, the god's domain is not safe, so Chaitya can only take time to protect them. After they all left, Chen Hao turned around and found that the big pig was looking at him with a smile. The big pig deliberately evolved into the mysterious island. The purpose is to let Chen Hao live on it. If I just ignore this guy, it probably won't be so good. Mysterious island, how big is it? Chen Hao said with a smile, can the Emperor of Life fit it? When the big pig heard this, its eyes suddenly lit up, and it said with expectation on its face, my body area is equal to half of Wolong Island, even if all the brothers and sisters are transformed into their original bodies, they can fit it. Looking at the big pig's expectant expression, Chen Hao crossed his arms and nodded slightly, okay, then let's change places, and then I will live on you. The big pig smiled, okay. Suddenly, Chen Hao noticed a shadow covering the surroundings. Chen Hao was slightly startled, he raised his face and looked up. In sight. Chen Hao's pupils condensed slightly. In the sky, there was a huge island suspended. It was really too huge. Although it flew very high, it still gave people a feeling of covering the sky and the sun. The island blocked the sunlight, and the shadow it created covered the huge trees below, including Chen Hao. "Master, that's my original body," the voice of the big pig came. Chen Hao was startled. He looked at the human-shaped big pig in front of him. Chen Hao frowned. "So, who are you now?" The big pig smiled and explained, "This is the clone I created using wood magic. My real body has always been in the sky, but it is invisible, so you didn't see it just now. Now that you need it, I will make my real body appear." Chen Hao's eyes lit up slightly, and he smiled. "Okay, then let's change homes, you lead the way. Don't forget to tell Dim you. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. I am immortal and I raise a divine beast in another world. Author, Chen Wunian. Chapter 186. Master, ride me. I can take you to the top. A voice came. It was the deer girl who spoke. Chen Hao now needs to follow Big Pig to the mysterious island above, and he needs a flying mount to go up. The Fire Phoenix has now followed Satya to the divine realm, otherwise it would definitely not let go of the important task of being a mount. I heard that the deer girl wanted to be a mount. Chen Hao looked at the deer girl in front of him, his eyebrows stretched. "Can you fly?" When the deer girl heard this, she smiled and said, "I am a strange beast. Flying is very easy for me." Hearing this, Chen Hao nodded slightly. "That's okay." The deer girl's holy little face had a touch of joy, her eyes were full of excitement, her body glowed with fluorescence, and her body was wrapped in a green halo. Slowly the deer girl changed from human form to green deer form. It is said that it is a deer. In order to make it easier for its owner to hold it up, the deer girl's body shape has evolved to be similar to that of a horse. Chen Hao rides a green deer. King Lu jumped up, stepped on the void, and flew towards the mysterious island. Chen Hao looked down. Looking into the sky, I saw a little bit of green grass growing out of the void stepped on by the green deer's hooves. The green grass glows with fluorescence, supporting the body of the green deer. King Lu's body flew through the air easily, very fast, and very flexible. Chen Hao knew that those green grasses were not pure plants, but things made of wood magic element. King Lu uses magic to support himself to fly. Chen Hao looked up. As King Lu flew, Chen Hao was approaching the mysterious island high in the sky at an extremely fast speed. Over time, Chen Hao realized something was wrong. Is it that high? King Lu was flying fast enough. Even at such a fast speed, he still couldn't touch the mysterious island after flying for several minutes. The only thing that can be felt is that the size of the mysterious island becomes larger and larger in the field of vision as it gets closer. Chen Hao looked down subconsciously. Looking down, Chen Hao found that Wolong Island below was getting smaller and smaller. It seems that the height of the mysterious island has exceeded my imagination just now. This height is a bit too high. Master, do you want Xiaoying to use teleportation? Xiaoying, who has been following Chen Hao silently, is now standing on Chen Hao's shoulder, raising his upper body and looking at Chen Hao. When Chen Hao heard this, he stretched his eyebrows and said with a smile, "No, I want to see how high this mysterious island is from the ground." Xiaoying nodded slightly. King Lu flew for nearly half an hour, and finally King Lu flew to the edge of the mysterious island. At this moment, Chen Hao could no longer see the entire mysterious island. He could only see a part of the mysterious island. When Chen Hao looked down, he could see that the originally huge Wolong Island had shrunk countless times. Looking down from here, Chen Hao could clearly see the outline of the entire Wolong Island. This scene shocked Chen Hao. Is this too high? Chen Hao raised his head and looked at the mysterious island above. The mysterious island is also too big. Ridiculously big. The green deer flew along the edge of the mysterious island and flew directly above the mysterious island. Looking down, Chen Hao could see the mysterious island with mountains, rivers, and forests. This mysterious island, just like its name, is completely an island, a suspended island. Big Pig chose to become a mysterious island by giving up its existence as a living thing and choosing to be a building, which sacrifices more and rewards more. The size and appearance of the mysterious island incarnated by the half-emperor giant pig are really shocking. Mysterious Island is a very unique monster among the many monsters in the half-emperor period. Normal monsters use the power of magic to transform from matter into biological form. But Mysterious Island gives up biological form and transforms into biological form. The form of matter, King Lu said, this is simply a kind of degeneration for life. There are basically no monsters that would choose this evolutionary path. However, if you choose to become the Mysterious Island, as a monster in the half-emperor stage, it will give up a lot and gain a lot. The Mysterious Island is a wood attribute monster, but it can perform attribute conversion, converting the wood attribute into the earth attribute. Can be converted from earth attribute to water attribute. Speaking of this, King Lu paused. The Mysterious Island can be said to be a small world of its own. Chen Hao stretched his eyebrows. It sounds pretty magical. Master Big Pig's humanoid clone flapped a pair of wings made of leaves and flew in front of Chen Hao. When Chen Hao saw Big Pig, he smiled and said, "Where is my house?" Big Pig smiled, "In the middle of the island, Master, come with me." As he spoke, the Big Pig flapped its wings and flew forward. The green deer follows the Big Pig. Chen Hao looked around. Suddenly, Chen Hao realized a problem. This place is so high, won't it be lack of oxygen? Chen Hao remembered that the higher the altitude, the more likely it is to be hypoxic. No, the Mysterious Island calls itself a small world. It's the same on the island as it is on the land, King Lu explained. Hearing this, Chen Hao stretched his eyebrows and smiled, "That's good." "It seems a bit far," Chen Hao muttered. Dazu heard Chen Hao talking to himself. It stopped and then looked at Chen Hao. When the green deer saw it, it also stopped. There was doubt in Chen Hao's eyes. The Big Pig said apologetically, "Master, I just thought you wanted to see more, so I didn't mention it. In fact, if you think it's troublesome to hurry, you can use the transfer to transfer you directly to your residence, which will be faster." Hearing this, Chen Hao smiled, "Don't feel sorry, I really wanted to take a look just now. But I'm really a little bored, use the transfer and take you to my new residence." The Big Pig nodded slightly when he heard it, then, "Master, next, transfer." Chen Hao only felt a black in front of his eyes. A light. When he saw it, Chen Hao was stunned. This is... In front of Chen Hao was a luxurious and huge building. The building was estimated to be about 30 meters high, tall, and majestic, surrounded by walls. It looked like the palace he had seen in Laiyan City before. "This is too big." Chen Hao looked at the Big Pig, and saw the Big Pig looking at Chen Hao with a smile. "Before, Sister King Lu talked to me about the residence. It said that this kind of building is relatively large and the master will like it." When he heard it, Chen Hao understood. The Big Pig actually has no research on architecture. At the beginning, the Big Pig used wood magic to build a wooden house for himself, and that wooden house was actually a replica of his own wooden house card, but it was bigger. The Big Pig had seen Chen Hao's wooden house, so he knew how to use wood magic to build it. When the green deer came, the green deer, who had nothing to do and liked beauty, naturally realized that the wooden house he lived in was a bit simple. Knowing that it was built by the Big Pig, it would talk to the Big Pig about it. In this way, the Big Pig, who turned into a mysterious island, would think of building such a large and majestic building. The Big Pig's eyes were full of expectations. I am immortal and I raise a divine beast in another world. Author, Chen Wunian. Chapter 187. Noticing Big Pig's gaze, Chen Hao smiled. Yes, I quite like it. Although Chen Hao has no pursuit of a place to live, it can be seen that Dazu must have worked very hard for this place. Since he expected himself to praise it, it would be nice to praise it. Big Pig was happy, with a smile on his face. These are what Big Pig should do. Master, where is Kinglu? Kinglu turned his face sideways and looked at himself with his big, delicate eyes. Chen Hao was startled, he was helpless. Each of these little guys has learned to take credit. They all learned bad things from the three wolves. Chen Hao smiled and said, "Okay, you're not bad either." Kinglu was happy. Chen Hao said with a smile, "Okay, stop making trouble and go down." When Kinglu heard this, he stepped on the void and landed on the ground with Chen Hao on his back. Chen Hao turned over and got off Kinglu's back, looked at the palace in front of him, and then looked back at the wide island behind him. Suddenly, there was a sound of wind. Chen Hao was slightly startled, and he raised his head to look. In the sky, a giant eastern dragon flew past. Chen Hao raised his eyebrows. "Is that brat Xiao Beilong following you too?" Chen Hao smiled, looked away, and then looked at the vast field in front of him, and he realized something. The mysterious island is safer than the Five Dragons Island. In this place, you don't have to worry about being attacked by monsters when you release your beasts. When I was on Wolong Island before, I was still a little worried and didn't dare to let low-level monsters out to play, but now I can do whatever I want. Also, the Life Emperor Wood. The Life Emperor Wood likes to breed wood elves. The half-emperor monsters of the Life Emperor Wood are naturally not afraid of the holy beasts of Wolong Island, but the wood elves it breeds are different. Let the Life Emperor Wood come here, and it can safely breed wood elves. Think of it and do it. Chen Hao looked at Dazu. "Have you told Dimyu about moving?" When the big pig heard this, he nodded. "I told you." Chen Hao nodded slightly. "Tell it to it and let it call all the wood elves back to it, and let those wood elves stay with it. I want to take it back." Big Pig said, "Okay, master." Book Chen Hao called out the book, and then took out the Snow Girl card and Snow Monster card he had caught before. Chen Hao waved his hand, and 18 cards flew out. Change. 18 cards turned into 18 monsters. 10 snow girls and 8 snow monsters. After the snow girls and snow monsters came out, they all looked at Chen Hao. "Master," they shouted to Chen Hao in unison. Chen Hao nodded slightly. "From now on, this is your home, go out and have fun." After Chen Hao released these little guys, he looked into the book. Chen Hao does not intend to cultivate these snow maidens and snow monsters. He currently only plans to cultivate a snow maiden. Yesterday, I fed that little guy a water attribute Emperor core. I don't know what it has evolved into now. Before evolving, the snow girl was the awakening stage snow girl. And now, holy beast period snow saint. Taming degree, 100%. Snow saint, a monster with dual attributes of wind and snow, evolved from the sub-saint Snow Lady, with a unique move, Snowfall. Jumped one level. Chen Hao showed a satisfied smile. Change. The card disappeared and a beautiful figure appeared in front of Chen Hao. The Snow Saint is wearing a white robe embroidered with wind and snow patterns. She has long snow-white hair, fair skin, and pupils the color of ice crystals. Compared with ordinary snow maidens, the appearance of the Snow Saint is more chilling and noble. The Snow Queen's gaze fell on Chen Hao, her eyes reflected Chen Hao's appearance, and she said, "Master." Chen Hao nodded slightly. "Master." Big Pig's voice came. Chen Hao came back to his senses and looked at Dazu. Dazu said, "Dimmu said it's ready." "Is that okay?" Chen Hao was startled. "You are here, can Dimmu know?" Big Pig smiled, "Master, you have forgotten that I used wood magic to create many plants in Wolong Island. Those plants are equivalent to part of my body. As long as I need them, I can transform those plants into become my clone. The information obtained by the clones is shared. Hearing this, Chen Hao understood. In other words, Big Pig just conveyed his words through another clone. Big Pig's ability is quite interesting. Okay. Change. A card appeared in front of Chen Hao. Half Emperor Stage Life Emperor Wood. The card of Life Emperor Wood was suspended in front of Chen Hao. Chen Hao reached out and picked up the card of Life Emperor Wood. Change. The card disappears, along with the card. One after another figures appeared in front of Chen Hao. A young man with long green hair appeared in front of Chen Hao. Behind him, followed a group of wood elves who looked as big as 4 or 5-year-old human children. This young man is exactly the human form of Life Emperor Mu. As soon as the Life Emperor Wood saw Chen Hao, it raised its hand, put it on its chest, bent slightly towards Chen Hao, and said respectfully, "Master." Master. When the wood elves saw it, they all shouted in unison. The child's voice is clear and beautiful. Chen Hao stretched his eyebrows and said with a smile, "Little wood spirit, you can breed wood elves here in the future. This is the island transformed from the body of the big pig. There are no other monsters. You can breed wood elves here without worrying about being disturbed by other monsters." When the Emperor of Life heard this, it looked more joyful. "Thank you, Master." Chen Hao smiled, "No need to thank me, go and find a suitable place." The Emperor of Life nodded, then turned and left. The wood elves followed the Emperor of Life and left one by one. Looking at these little wood elves, Chen Hao smiled, "It's really interesting." The beast that he cultivated also began to breed new life. This feels very interesting. Master. When Chen Hao heard this, he looked at the big pig. The big pig looked at Chen Hao and said, "Master, Dalong just told my clone that Erlong gave birth." Chen Hao was startled, his eyes lit up. "Give birth?" The big pig nodded slightly, "Yes." Chen Hao smiled, let's go, and take a look." The big pig smiled and said, "Master, we can use the transfer method to go there." Chen Hao nodded. Before, Erlong said that she would lay eggs, and Dalong would go to accompany it. Now it has finally laid eggs. Through the big pig's transfer magic, Chen Hao returned to Wolong Island. At first glance, Chen Hao's eyes lit up slightly. Ice and snow. In front of Chen Hao was a cave hall located inside the mountain. The entire cave hall was covered with a thick layer of ice on the ground and walls. The entire cave hall could be said to be made of ice. In the center of the cave hall, there was a huge nest like a bird's nest. The dragon's nest was made of countless branches and ice. On the dragon's nest, Erlong, who had transformed into a giant dragon, was lying on it. And Dalong, who was in the form of a giant dragon, was guarding next to it. Seeing Chen Hao appear, Erlong raised his head and looked at Chen Hao. When Dalong saw Chen Hao, his eyes lit up. "Master." Erlong also had joy in his eyes. "Master." Hearing this, Chen Hao smiled, "You two have worked hard." Dalong had a smile on his face and looked at Erlong. Dalong nodded. Erlong slowly stood up. After Erlong stood up, Chen Hao saw the dragon egg that Erlong had just hidden under his body. It caught his eye. Chen Hao's pupils condensed slightly. This. On the dragon's nest made of branches and ice, 3 half-meter-high eggs lay on it. The egg was light blue all over, and you could see pieces of scales like dragon scales on it. Chen Hao always thought that dragons only laid 1 egg, but he didn't expect that there were actually 3. I am immortal and I raise a divine beast in another world. Author, Chen Wunian. Chapter 188. There are 3. Chen Hao muttered. A giant dragon in the wild can usually only lay 1 egg at a time, but when there is enough magic in the body, it can lay more. The voice of the dear girl came. Chen Hao stretched his eyebrows. There is such a saying. Chen Hao walked to the dragon's nest and looked at the 3 dragon eggs in front of him. He looked at the big dragon. Can I put it away? The big dragon and the second dragon both turned into human form. When the big dragon heard Chen Hao's question, it smiled. Well, we still need the master to help us hatch. Chen Hao nodded slightly. He looked at the 3 dragon eggs in front of him. He stretched out his hand and placed it on the dragon egg in front of him. It was cool in his hand. Transform. The dragon egg disappeared, and a card floated in front of Chen Hao. Chen Hao stretched out his hand and held the card. Incubation period dragon egg. Hatching degree, 3%. Taming degree, 100%. Seeing this, Chen Hao's eyes lit up slightly, and he smiled on his face. Taming degree, 100%. Interesting. Chen Hao had always thought that eggs would always have a tameness of 0 during the incubation period and would not change. Now it seems that this is not the case. However, the reason why this dragon egg has a 100% tameness is probably because it was laid by Erlong. This tameness is based on Erlong's tameness. Interesting. The sense of accomplishment of laying eggs by the small animals that I have cultivated is really great. Book. The book appeared in front of Chen Hao, and Chen Hao put the dragon egg card into the card slot of the book. Chen Hao turned the other 2 dragon eggs into cards and put them into the card slot of the book. Looking at the 3 dragon egg cards lying in the card slot, Chen Hao smiled and said, hatch out the 3 little guys as soon as possible to make me happy. When Dalong and Erlong heard this, they looked at each other with joy in their eyes. Chen Hao retracted his gaze and looked at Dalong and Erlong. By the way, Chen Hao took out 2 cards from the book and waved them. The card flew to Dalong and Erlong. Dalong and Erlong took a look and reached out to take it. Dalong's pupils narrowed slightly when he saw it, and then he looked at Chen Hao, Emperor Core. Erlong also had doubts and puzzlement in his eyes, and he looked at Chen Hao. Chen Hao smiled and said, do you recognize it? Dalong shook his head when he heard it. I've never seen it before. Then Chen Hao crossed his arms and looked at Dalong. What is above the Holy Beast stage? Dalong was stunned, and there was a hint of doubt in his eyes, and then he looked at Erlong beside him. Erlong looked at Dalong, and there was also doubt in his eyes. Dalong retracted his gaze and looked at Chen Hao. Master, the Holy Beast stage is the endpoint of the evolution of monsters. After the Holy Beast stage, there is no higher. Sure enough. Just as Chen Hao expected. The semi-emperor above the Holy Beast is actually out of the common sense of this world. Just like the most powerful humans are the sword god and the god of law, the strength of the sword god and the god of law is actually equivalent to the Holy Beast. The highest level of demons and monsters is the Holy Beast level. In other words, above the half-emperor level, it has already left the normal and reached the realm of God. This is also the reason why the fire phoenix, as a strange beast, can only grow into a holy beast at most, and cannot continue to grow. For ordinary people, the half-emperor stage is already a god. Chen Hao smiled and said, no, there are higher beings above the holy beast stage. What you have in your hands is a higher existence, and the magic crystals you have, well, the people in that place call this thing the Emperor Core. After eating them, you will usher in another evolution. Transformation. As Chen Hao's voice fell, the Emperor Core cards in the hands of Dalong and Erlong changed back to the posture of the Emperor Core. There was a hint of shock in Dalong's eyes. It looked at Erlong beside it. Erlong was also surprised. Both looked at Chen Hao together. Dalong said in surprise, can we evolve again? Chen Hao nodded slightly, and he smiled and said, eat, and after eating, you can go back to the book and have a good rest, waiting for the next evolution. Dalong had a smile on his face, and he said, thank you, Master. His eyes were full of gratitude. Erlong also had joy on his face. He didn't say anything, just looked at Chen Hao, his eyes were full of gratitude. Chen Hao nodded slightly. Dalong and Erlong put the Emperor core into their mouths. Change. Dalong and Erlong both turned into cards. 2 cards floated in front of Chen Hao. Chen Hao reached out and took the cards and put them into the book. The Holy Dragon evolved into the Half-Emperor period. I don't know what it will become. Chen Hao smiled and said, let's see later. Thinking about it, Chen Hao couldn't help but think of Dalin and the others. Dalong has a child, Dalin, and the others should also have a partner. Chen Hao smiled, wait a minute, after the Wind and Fire Wolf has chosen, let the other 2 little guys go to the monster forest to find one. Thinking, Chen Hao retracted his gaze and looked at the big pig. Go back. The big pig nodded slightly. Through the big pig's transfer magic, he returned to his residence on the mysterious island. After Chen Hao returned to the mysterious island, he transferred all the beasts that he had placed on the 5 Dragons Island to the mysterious island by turning them back into cards and then releasing them. After that, Chen Hao entered the palace by himself, walked around the ridiculously large palace, and familiarized himself with the environment. It was already noon when I was doing this. He was in the bedroom, using the unlimited food card to prepare something to eat after lunch. He lay on the big soft bed, staring at the ceiling above, and was in a daze for a while. Unknowingly, there are more and more beasts, and some of them can't be taken care of, Chen Hao thought to himself. Indeed, there are more and more beast masters, and not just ordinary ones. It was a little hard to take care of him when he was in the World of Warcraft forest. Now that he has done so many beasts, let alone taking care of them, Chen Hao can't even turn the pages of the book. It seems like a bit much. However, it's pretty good. Now with Big Pig's mysterious island, beast masters can also have their own residence. Next, when Satya and the others bring back the Emperor core, they can continue to evolve the beast masters. Suddenly, Chen Hao had an idea. If these beasts keep evolving, what will they eventually evolve into? Suddenly, an idea flashed in Chen Hao's mind. Chen Hao took out the God of Storms card from the book and looked at it. Main God period God of Storms. The main God period. In the main God stage, can one control a beast and become a god? Become a god who can create races and humans. Realizing this, Chen Hao suddenly showed an expectant smile on his face. Become a god. This is quite interesting. Create a race, human, elves, but it is a bit difficult to evolve to the main god. The best thing I have now is the core of the God King. If I continue to go up, will I kill the god? Are you kidding me? Haha. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. I am immortal and I raise a divine beast in another world. Author, Chen Wunian. Chapter 189. Chen Hao thought of Satya. Slaying the god is actually not impossible. With the help of the book, Satya's strength recovered too quickly. Now Satya has the strength comparable to that of a god general, if he continues. It is also possible for Satya to return to the peak strength of the main god stage. The main gods who had fought with Satya before had not yet recovered. If Satya, who has recovered to her peak, is allowed to hunt down those main gods to obtain the Godhead. Godhead, probably just like the magic crystal and Emperor core, is just another name for the magic crystal. Chen Hao lay his head on the pillow and thought. However, there is a problem with this. The main god will never die. Even if his godhead is broken like Satya, he will be reborn in the end. In other words, the godhead is different from the magic crystal or the emperor's core. In addition to the magic element, is there any memory in the godhead? Chen Hao frowned. Well, I'll ask Satya then. Suddenly, an idea flashed in Chen Hao's mind. Right. Book. The book appeared in front of Chen Hao. Chen Hao opened the pages of the book and took out the biometric identification device from the book. There seems to be all kinds of information in this identification device. I want to know something. Chen Hao raised his eyebrows. Just ask it. Change. The cards turned into metal balls. Chen Hao pressed the metal ball and a picture was immediately projected. Chen Hao said, I want to know what the Godhead is. Text jumped out of the screen. The Godhead is something possessed by monsters in the main God stage. The Godhead is composed of a large amount of magic elements and memory information. Seeing this, Chen Hao stretched his eyebrows. Sure enough, it was just as I guessed. Then, if I feed the beast with divine power, can the beast become a god? Chen Hao asked. You can become a god, but if you do that, the personality of the Godhead will invade the personality of the beast, and the beast will have a chance of losing his own personality. Hearing this, Chen Hao suddenly thought of a vocabulary he had seen before. Seize the body. Chen Hao raised his eyebrows. After the Godhead is eaten, the body of the beast that ate the Godhead will be occupied by the god with the Godhead. Chen Hao touched his nose. That's really terrible. However, the universal book you have, if you let the beast eat the Godhead, turn the beast into a card, and then put it into the universal book, the universal book will help you kill the original personality in the Godhead and help you. The beast becomes a god. I saw this line of text pop up on the screen. Chen Hao's pupils shrank suddenly. A smile suddenly appeared on his face. Do you really want my god of slaughter? Chen Hao said, by the way, there is another question. Why can't the main god die? Why can the killed god be resurrected? As long as the Lord God is born, he will never die. The main god will be destroyed into particle form. As long as time is given, they will recondensate into the Godhead, recondensate the magic elements, and be reborn. Seeing this, Chen Hao's eyes flashed. This is too perverted. No wonder the Lord God won't die. Chen Hao thought for a moment, and then said, then, let me ask you again, can the Godhead be born artificially? This is what Chen Hao wants to know most. Since Godhead can be produced from nature, it can certainly also be produced artificially. At the current rate of evolution of Satya, it is inevitable for the big wolves and the others to evolve to the divine king stage. The question is, how to become gods? As far as Chen Hao knows, the Godhead is currently only found in the main gods, and there are only 7 main gods, which is not enough. The Godhead core card and the Vein Stone card are fused to generate the Godhead. The Vein Stone can be obtained in the Endless Cave. Endless Cave? Where is the location of the Endless Cave? Suddenly, another picture appeared in front of Chen Hao's eyes. This picture was a map. A red dot can be seen on the map, marking the location of the Endless Cave. Chen Hao looked at the map. Isn't the location of this map in VAF continent? It seems that it should still be in the Thunder Silver Empire. Since it is in the human realm, King Lu should know. Thinking of this, Chen Hao turned over and sat up. Change. King Lu's card appeared in front of Chen Hao. Change. The card disappeared and the dear girl's figure appeared in front of Chen Hao. The dear girl slowly opened her eyes and looked at Chen Hao, with a smile on her face. Master. Chen Hao said, I want to ask you something. You know the Endless Cave, right? Hearing this, the dear girl's eyes narrowed slightly, and she nodded slightly. The Endless Cave is located in the middle of VAF continent, and is also within the territory of the Thunder Silver Empire. That place is a place of death, and there are some things living in it that look like creatures but are not creatures. Those things will kill everyone who steps into it. Life in the Endless Cave. Human beings have marked many places as forbidden areas, such as the World of Warcraft Forest, 5 Dragons Island, Endless Cave, and Death Abyss. These places are all classified as forbidden areas by humans. If we want to rank these forbidden areas, Endless Cave is the first. According to records, humans have come back alive from the Warcraft Forest, 5 Dragons Island, and the death abyss. But, dear girl looked at Chen Hao, no life can come back alive after entering the endless cave. Hearing this, Chen Hao smiled, it's so interesting, I have to go and see it. The dear girl's eyes were shining, and she said, Master, I think it's better not to go to that place. Chen Hao looked at the dear girl, and for a moment Chen Hao was a little strange. The dear girl knew that she had been to the god's domain, and she dared to go to the god's domain. Even if it was a god, she had defeated it, but now the dear girl wanted him not to go to the endless cave. Is the endless cave more terrifying than the god's domain? The dear girl looked at Chen Hao, when I was a life breath, I sneaked into the endless cave. At that time, the part I sneaked into was torn apart by those creatures that didn't look like living things. The breath of those creatures was not the breath of magic, but another strange breath. The energy emitted by that breath surpassed anything I have seen so far. Including the god of storms or Shataya, their breaths are not as strong as those things. Chen Hao's heart moved. So, the things in the endless cave are stronger than Shataya in the god general period? Chen Hao's heart moved. That's right. The vein stone plus the god lord core can be fused into a godhood. It's not surprising that the things in the endless cave are as powerful as the Lord God. But, we still have to go. Maybe we can ask Shataya. Shataya is a god, and gods should know more. Thinking of this, it was night soon. Shataya came back with the fire phoenix. Master, Sister Shataya is so strong. As soon as the second wolf came back and saw Chen Hao, it shouted excitedly, Sister Shataya's magic is too strong. Master, you don't know, at that time we were surrounded and beaten by those heavenly soldiers, and we were almost beaten to death. As a result, as soon as Sister Shataya came back, she cast a magic, and all the heavenly soldiers began to kill each other. The second wolf laughed and said, Sister Shataya is really awesome. When Shataya heard this, she crossed her arms and her face was full of pride, happiness, and complacency. That smug look. The second wolf looked at Shataya, his eyes showing the admiration of the younger brother for the big sister. I am immortal and I raise a divine beast in another world. Author, Chen Wunian. Chapter 190. Chen Hao looked at Erlang's adoring posture, smiled, and looked at Satya. Satya had a proud smile on her face. When she saw Chen Hao, she smiled at Chen Hao and said with a smile, Master, I followed the Master's order to protect them and bring them intact back. In addition to this, there is also this. Satya took out a card and handed it to Chen Hao. Chen Hao took it. It was a card from a card collection book. Chen Hao looked at Satya. Satya smiled and explained, these are the 6 series Emperor Core and the Emperor Core. Master, part of that Emperor's Core was hunted by me. The voice of Huofeng came. Chen Hao looked at Huofeng and saw Huofeng with a smile on his face. He looked at Chen Hao with a smile, the heavenly soldiers in the half-emperor stage are nothing to me. However, those heavenly soldiers in the emperor stage, if Satya hadn't taken action, I would have had to go back to my book and rest. Master, we are also working hard to hunt down the heavenly soldiers to obtain the Emperor's Core, Erlang suddenly said. The 3 wolves smiled and said, Master, I killed 3 heavenly soldiers today, and there were 3 Emperor Cores among them that I hunted. How am I doing? The big wolf folded his hands on his chest and had a heroic smile on his face. He looked at Chen Hao and said with a smile, Master, I killed 3 heads. Report to the Master, I killed 2 heavenly soldiers. The plush-looking dough ball next to him raised his chubby little paws and said. The dough ball stared at him expectantly with his big eyes. Chen Hao looked at it, smiled and nodded. When Dough looked at it, his eyes shone with excitement, and his big plush face was full of joy. Chen Hao's eyes swept across the beasts on the field, and he saw the big wolf, the second wolf, and the third wolf, looking at him with expectations in their eyes. Chen Hao said with a smile, you all did a good job, great. Big Wolf smiled happily. Erlang's eyes were full of joy. There was joy on the faces of the other beast masters. For these beasts, they can play a role, help Chen Hao, and get praise from Chen Hao. This is their pursuit. Chen Hao looked at Satya, Satya, feed the Emperor's core to all the half-emperor beasts. When Satya heard it, it had a smile on its face. Okay. Chen Hao looked at Satya, watching it take the card collection book, and then feed the Emperor's core to the Big Wolf and the others. Since the Big Pig is currently in the state of a mysterious island, it cannot be included in the book. In order to prevent it from eating the Emperor's core and dying suddenly due to being unable to withstand the magic, Chen Hao did not let the Big Pig eat it. At present, Dazu doesn't have much pursuit of improving his strength. Chen Hao plans to keep Dazu in this form for the time being and talk about it later. After the Big Wolf had eaten them all, Chen Hao took them all back into the Universal Book. The field suddenly became empty, leaving only Satya standing in front of him. Satya looked around and watched the beasts disappear. It looked at Chen Hao, its eyes filled with questions. Satya naturally knew that there must be a reason why Chen Hao left it. Chen Hao said, "Endless Cave, do you know Satya?" Hearing this, Satya nodded slightly, "I know. I have been to the Endless Cave before. Although the Endless Cave is located on the VAF continent, in fact, it is located in another space like the God's domain. Entering from the entrance of the Endless Cave is equivalent to entering a teleportation array. You will be teleport the array to another space." Speaking of this, Satya looked at Chen Hao. There are many extremely powerful creatures living in the Endless Cave. They have super self-healing abilities and are extremely fast. In terms of level, their defense, attack, and speed are comparable to those of the Lord God, but they have no intelligence. If I were at my peak, I could deal with one or two of those things, but more than one would be useless. If it were me now. Satya looked at Chen Hao seriously, "If you go in, you can only escape." Hearing this, Chen Hao felt a little shocked. Even if the Lord God reaches that place, can't he be absolutely safe? It can't go beyond two ends. The Endless Cave is really a scary place. But if you want to obtain godhood, you must go to the Endless Cave. Chen Hao looked at Satya. Now Satya's level is in the awakening stage. Judging from the time, Satya can already evolve once a day. When Satya completely evolves into the main god, in terms of time. Chen Hao stretched out his hand, pinched his fingers, and did the math. Half Saint stage, Holy Beast stage, half Emperor stage, Divine General, Divine King. Speaking of this, Chen Hao paused and then looked at Satya. Will the Lord God be the main god after the Divine Lord stage? Satya's eyes glowed with a hint of luster, and she said, "Actually, the limit for monsters is to reach the Holy Beast stage. The half-emperor stage and the emperor stage are just creations of the Lord God, and can be regarded as derivatives of the Lord God stage." Speaking of this, Satya looked at Chen Hao. However, if the Lord God is like me, after being beaten like this, he wants to recover his strength, and he will slowly obtain magic elements to recover. During the recovery process, the Lord God will indeed period, and then jump to the main God period. After saying this, Chen Hao only heard. After the Divine King period is the main God period. In other words, it takes 7 days for Satya to advance to the Divine King stage. Big Pig, Chen Hao said. Suddenly, green plants emerged from the ground. The plants condensed into human shapes and turned into the appearance of a large humanoid pig. The Big Pig looked at Chen Hao and bowed slightly to him. "Master, please give me your orders." Chen Hao said, "I remember you said before that the mysterious island can be moved." The Big Pig nodded slightly. Chen Hao stretched his eyebrows. "Then I will give you a task today. We have a destination next, the Endless Cave." As he said, Chen Hao took out a map card from the book. "Transform." The card turned into a map. Chen Hao opened the map and glanced at it. This map is a map in the treasure collected by the big dragon. On the map, various places are recorded, and the endless cave is naturally marked on the map. Chen Hao handed the map to the big pig. If you don't understand, you can ask King Lu tomorrow. The big pig took the map, looked at it, and looked at Chen Hao. Master, don't worry, the big pig can understand it. Chen Hao smiled, that's good. The next life is to wait for Shisha to continue to evolve and continue hunting with the big wolf. Then the higher level Emperor core will be obtained and given to the big wolf to help them evolve. The key point is to wait for Shataya to evolve to the main god stage, and then let it get some god cores and go to the endless cave to get some vein stones. Synthesize the godhood to cultivate the big wolf. This is Chen Hao's ultimate goal.